Greetings, gorgeous people of Earth. I bring with you a message of peace and tranquility and getting fat on chocolate eggs. Hello and welcome to the Pro Synth Network show. As you can see, I am not Rob, and I am standing in for him. Okay, right, now, first off, we're going to do the whole thing that Rob normally does, which is, click the bell, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. You know that you watch it every week, you know. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to go to these guests. So first of all, we're going to introduce. Where is he? I can't find him. Oh God, I can't find him. Where are you? You got to be on the window to click the button. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. All right, hang on a sec. We'll do this the stupid way, like that. There are the guests. As you can see before you. Okay.
Hello, all you nice people in the computer.
Yeah, all that practice just waste of time. Anyway, as you can see. So, first of all, okay, hang on, let's do this. First of all, we'll talk to Rob, because he's poorly.
Dying.
And worn out. Guten Tag, sir.
Hello.
How
Well
are
done,
you, boss?
by the way.
Yeah, it was so smooth, wasn't it?
Do you know, honestly, it was great.
Just like a normal show. Just like a normal show.
It was really great.
So how you doing? Come on.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm physically ruined. But yeah, it's gone really well. Everything's kind of moved, and we're in, and the studio is just a mass of boxes and
with the DX1 set up already.
I've got literally nothing. So as you can see, I'm still outside the house now. It's no, it's gone as good, if not as better than I anticipated, and we're all in, and
well, you sound like you're all in.
It looks a bit like a Victorian jail cell.
It is. Well, you can tell it's Victorian because it's still in black and white.
Yeah, how'd you get your camera to do that?
But yeah, no, it's all good. So
Good man.
yeah, everything is in the studio except it's all in boxes and all everywhere. And the DX1 is in there and is sat in the middle of things and probably won't move now until, well, it probably just won't move. We'll just work around it.
And you can, I'm assuming you can plug it in and plug in headphones, so at least you won't have total withdrawal symptoms.
If I knew where the plug sockets were, but they're all covered by the boxes, you see.
Ah.
It might be extension cable ahoy. But no, nothing's going to get touched until I get back from Italy next week. So,
well, you needed someplace to put the bottles of wine.
well, quite. Actually, those were one of the first things that went in.
I mean, the DX1.
Okay. Indeed.
Right then. Okay, let's go and say hello to this young man over here. Where are you? I can never say. Oh, there he is. Right. This guy, Dr. Mike Metlay. Go for it. Stand by, everybody. This is going to hurt your ears.
Lovely.
Okay, I've just lowered the tone of this entire.
Yeah, stop that. That's
discussion.
my job.
Yeah, I know. But I figure you're busy hosting.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm a stand-in.
He doesn't belch with a doctorate.
Yeah, well, nobody does except me. It's awfully good to see everybody, and thank you very much for asking me back. I'm going to throw in a quick plug for PSN, which is half selfish, which is next week. I'm also going to be on the show. I'm not going to be for the entire thing, I don't think, but I have promised everybody that I was going to give everybody a good look at the color and texture of the carpets at NAMM. I'm going to be at the NAMM show, and Thursday I'll be scouting out the best places to be for showing how this stuff is, and then I'm going to see if I can actually get into StreamYard via my phone and see what I can do there. So yeah, I'll be bringing you stuff live, assuming there actually is any new synth gear at all in the entire convention center.
Excellent stuff.
So that's me.
Good man. Right. Now let's introduce our third guest. Im.
Yeah.
He's
Or
just
him.
jumping us.
Yeah, here we are. I think this is going terribly well. Very, very smooth.
Well, emphasis on the terrible.
Yeah, well,
God, what do you
there is
think's
that.
bad then?
There is that, and yeah, it's good to see you all. How wrong can things go?
Oh, give it a minute.
Yeah, all right, all right. So I can hear Richard typing away in the
He's
background.
building a shed or coding something. I don't know what he's doing.
He's just got those really nice cherry switches, you know. The
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
nice,
I
loud,
didn't-
clacky ones.
I didn't
Sounds like he's
realize how loud
programming a
it-
TR-909, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, or a Circle On. He says, wearing a Circle On T-shirt.
I'll stop.
New microphone.
Yes.
See?
Well done.
What a lovely
Yeah.
thing.
Is that an actual old school SM7B?
Yes, it is.
Because they've got a new one out that also does USB that looks almost identical. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of USB mics.
Oh, I'm not either. But you know, I always
So
have
that
to
wasn't worth
ask.
bringing up then, was it?
I'm
That
sorry.
fell flat on its ass.
And we've only descended to these because we can't afford Electro Voice RE20s.
I
you know.
see.
Well, nobody can anymore. But Andrew, little tip: try the 320.
I might, but I use the RE20. I've got one at the studio. We use it for anything to do with low frequency, kicks, bass, whatever. It's just the beast for that, really. And a combination of that and a U47.
And yes, Richard, I know the 320 doesn't sound the same.
Yes, I knew you'd see that.
but they're not a horrible substitute. Mm-hmm. They're not a horrible substitute.
Neither is an SM7.
They still do the variable D thing, so you can keep your. Andrew, will you stop that?
Come on in.
Hi,
Let's move on now.
I'm Andrew Longhurst,
And
and I'm
let's
an
go.
utter ponce.
Let's go over to our local shed builder, Mr. Richard Hilton. Hello, darling.
Hi, kids.
Hi, Mr. Rogers.
I'm on my new monitor, soon to be attached to my new computer. I'm very excited about it.
Woo.
Very cool.
Very
It was
pretty.
it was a rather dark day when the previous i9 iMac bricked itself, and I brought it back to Apple and said goodbye.
Well, if the monitor went out, it would have been a dark day.
The
I'm
monitor
sorry, I'll
actually
get my
didn't-
coat.
It didn't actually fail, but the computer would not boot, so it was a black monitor. But the monitor was actually not what failed.
You had a backup. It had backed up successfully, everything already, so you were able. Great stuff.
No data loss.
Paul
There's-
Artola says he finds that the SM7B has too much padding over the SM57, so it's not as good for hand-to-hand audience combat.
Okay, that's not. It's not unfair. It's also a little harder to hammer nails with. So if you have to build the stage
Yeah.
before you sing the lead vocal, you're
Yeah,
better off with an SM57 for sure.
yeah, but you know, you're the one who's making all the hammering noises, so
Yeah, I suppose I am.
whatever mic you're using, it's nice and sensitive.
Well, it's built into the monitor.
Oh,
Right now, I don't. The computer that has all the software that runs the USB mic over there that we all hate is not installed on this laptop, and I didn't have time today to do this, so it is. What
we'll
it is.
live. So type with impunity. We know where it's coming from now, so we don't have to keep going. Okay, who's
I-
the idiot?
I'd use your fingers to type. It's much better.
Yeah,
Much better.
yeah, absolutely.
Rather than my elbows, you mean?
No, rather than your impunity.
Ah,
Yeah, it's a family show.
it's hard for me to remove the impunity from the rest of the personality, unfortunately.
Ah,
Yeah,
it explains a lot, Richard.
Yes, it does.
it really does.
Okay,
And we've
well,
already lost Puricelli. He's bored and he's looking at his phone.
Yeah.
take a drink.
Yeah, sorry, did Mr. Hilton there. No, I'm just being entertained.
Trying
what
my
it is.
best.
Are you not entertained?
Well, it turns out that I couldn't get the introductions to last 2 hours, so we'll have to do something else instead now.
We're
Well-
gonna have to actually
I will
Yes.
let you guys carry on because my wife came in and scowled at me because she thought I wasn't doing this tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave it in your capable hands. Be good.
No.
Yeah.
And everyone that's watching, look after you guys and give them lots of love. And
Yeah.
thank you all for stepping in and helping out. It's
No
great.
worries. Don't
This
throw your back out, brah.
this could be the end of the franchise by tomorrow. You know that. Don't you?
No, we had 3 good years. It was a good run.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's right.
take care, everyone. Hopefully, see you next week.
Best
maybe.
to Jackie, Rob.
Bye.
Safe journeys. Have a
Bye.
good time, Rob. Bye.
Right. Finally, now we can get naked. Right.
Yay!
Hey.
Bring
Okay.
in the dancing girls.
I am now going to try and bring up the first topic. Bear with me. Anybody got a fire extinguisher to hand?
I do, but it wouldn't do you much good.
Okay, this might work. Okay, let's start with
Always encouraging.
this, which is our Ableton 11.3 update.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we look at this video?
Yeah, let's.
Come on, it might be fun. Oh, is that it? Hello, it's got to be more than that. Oh. Ah. What the hell is going on? Thank you. Do you know what? You can't click on the icon in the little window. You have to go to the
From
page,
Ableton.
Dick.
This is the new Drift Synth, which is going to be included in Ableton Live 11.3. Amazingly, it's going to be included for free with all versions of Ableton Live. So that includes standard and suite, and even light and intro if you've got those. At the moment, Live 11.3 is in public beta, which is what I'm running here. And yeah, Drift is definitely the main headline edition. So I only got my hands on this today. This is going to be a very quick first look at some of the features, and I'm going to play some of the presets so you can hear what kind of sounds it can make. Let's start with what Drift is. As the name might imply, it's an analog style synthesizer. The Drift name being that it's designed to replicate the kind of drift and wobble and imperfections of that analog gear. So the
Like we don't
oscillators
have
slightly
enough already.
drifting and the filters shifting and things like that, which actually sounds really lovely. These
move on,
sub-oscillators
come
now. So we've just got that one. What else have we got in here? We've got kind of a ramp kind of wave here. We've got a pretty standard square wave with the shape there doing the pulse width modulation. So it's a very basic demonstration of what Drift is doing.
Really?
With 2 different modes. Mode 2 with the harsher slope there. And you've got a key tracking control there as well. You've also got a resonance control, of course, and a high pass filter there with this nice little graph in the middle so you can see what's happening. You've got 2 ADSR envelopes. Over here you've got an LFO with all the controls you need for that. Again, it gives you a nice little graph there, and you can change the LFO to different.
No, let's see if we can actually hear this thing doing something.
And I suppose the head.
Right, before I lose the will to live.
Too late.
Thoughts, yeah. Thoughts, gentlemen.
Well, sorry, may I? I think
Yes, please.
probably the reason that was shown at all. It's another synth. What is wonderful about it is that it's an MPE synth. So that means free. It's probably, I think, the first free MPE synth. Is that right?
No.
Well, to the extent that Falcon has had MPE patches now for a while, one could suggest it's about the same thing. You don't have to buy them for Falcon. I mean, you can, but
There is one. I believe it's free. I'm not sure. But if you go to rogerlindesign.com, he keeps an updated list of virtual instruments that do MPE. And I'm pretty sure he's got at least one freebie in there, and it's been there for a while. But don't quote me until you've had a chance to check the list, which I have not.
I mean, this is only free if you've got their $600 DAW.
Well, no, it's
No,
at
no.
all levels. It's going to be in everything, including
Wait,
intro.
am I wrong about that, Andrew?
Yeah. It's a free. So there are free versions of Ableton, and this is included.
Steve Elbows.
In every version.
Yes.
Version.
And Steve Elbows has just reminded me it's Surge XT, which is free, and Roger Lynn Design and the people who work there are doing a lot to sort of support what it does with MPE. And it's a very nice synthesizer. Anyway, getting back to Ableton Live.
Okay, fair enough.
I think the focus, though, is the fact that it is an instrument that's able to receive MPE.
Yeah.
Because there's not that many of them knocking around at the moment, is there?
Not yet.
And we've been talking over recent shows about what we were hoping for from shows like NAMM, apart from being able to see the wonderful texture of the carpet. And one of the things I think
No
most
pressure.
one of the things which most everyone, go for it. Most of the things which everyone has been looking for is an expansion into MPE Poly Aftertouch, because it adds such expressivity, and it's that's one of the things that I think we've all been wanting since the 80 came out, CS80. It just adds a different, if you can take normal patches, put them into something which sounds normal like anything else, with polyphonic aftertouch, all of a sudden you've got an instrument. It's a whole instrument, and it's no two people playing it will make it sound the same, which is a wonderful thing. It becomes a performance thing. So for me, this is why I think this is exciting. It's just showing that there is more coming, and it's becoming more mainstream, and it's an announcement which Ableton have thought very carefully about making. So it's taking it further forward, I think.
Yeah.
Could I have to ask. I know that Kent has had CS80s around. He's had a couple. But Andrew and Richard, in your professional careers, especially in the very early days of MIDI, were you using polyphonic aftertouch?
Where I could. Sorry, Richard, after you.
I would have been. If I happened to be sitting in front of a Kurzweil MIDI board, a Prophet T8, or something that, or an Ensoniq EPS,
Yeah,
I might. Sure,
but
it wasn't like a hinge issue for me, because it wasn't. Most things weren't really programmed to exploit that in a very expressive way, whereas these MPE-based synths tend to be much more expressive.
Thank you.
In their way.
And Andrew, what about you?
I think I'm kind of on the same. I loved the 80 when it came out, and I loved the T8, but their compatibility and their affordability made them, not particularly mainstream. Although I loved using them, they allowed me to sound like a much better player than I actually was.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because I had a T8 in my studio for years. I managed to get one very, very cheap.
Wow.
And in fact, the only reason I got rid of it is because it broke a stand it was on and was on a trajectory to the floor. I caught it. My back has never been the same. And Dr. Mrs. Doctor invented a rule on the spot that any synthesizer that injures Dr. Mr. Doctor is not allowed to stay in the house. So that's why I don't have a T8 anymore. But I used the Poly Aftertouch constantly. And when I got rid of it, I said, well, I'll get an EPS. And the action wasn't quite the same. And then, of course, but the thing that got me was polyphonic aftertouch just vanished. And I've missed it. And, for a while, you couldn't even get mono aftertouch on a keyboard that was under $1,000. Nobody was doing it. And Craig Anderton and I used to have a commiserating drink at every NAMM show saying, well, here's to Expression going bye-bye forever on synthesizers. And so then Aftertouch came back, and then thanks to CME, followed by Ashen, all of a sudden, people are discovering that now you can build poly aftertouch actions, and it's like everybody's rediscovering, or discovering for the first time what some of us have known for 40 plus years.
But it's not just the poly aftertouch. I think the whole MPE engine thing, and what's happening with Osmos and with all the different variants now, is we've got and Roly, we've got the 4D, rather than just 3D, we've got 4D and 5D, however you want to do it. Now those are making a really big difference. Some of them, I have to say, I find the Roly kind of difficult sometimes to. I've not played with it enough. I don't have one yet. I've been borrowing one. I really want to get one and get it down. But the Osmos,
I'm not going to be getting my Osmos for probably about a month still. But I mean, I work with MPE stuff. I don't think I have a single non-MPE keyboard in the studio anymore. I think I've gotten rid of all the other ones, and it's just wonderful. I'm personally not a Roly fan, but I use the Keyboard Pro 4, and I have a Linstrument right in front of me.
Wow.
Because between the Linstrument and the Hydrasynths, I'm pretty happy, and I like the way this is going. I like the fact that now more and more and more people are discovering that you don't need to hold down one note and flail around with wheels and knobs and stuff. You can actually get your keyboard technique back, and that can only be a good thing.
I think last week as well we covered. One of the things I think we discussed was the whole notion that for synthesis for very many years, you were always, a lot of people that got into synths in the early days, and even now, I guess, kind of were jealous of the guitarists in the band, right? Because they were able to articulate and bend and do all sorts of wonderful stuff.
And get girls.
So it was, and violinists, the articulation you were able to get made it an instrument, whereas synths were kind of switches. For an awful lot of people, they were switches. And you had a bunch of presets and switches, and if you wanted any more than that, it required a great deal of effort with programming and programming and stuff. So it was never really live, and I think that's changing for the better now. And I can't wait. Now all we need is someone to bring out a sub or a $500 poly aftertouch or MPE controller, and we'd be.
We're close. We're close. I mean, the Hydrasynth Explorer is barely over $500, and you get a nice little synthesizer thrown in. Of course, it's not standard sized. It's not a standard sized key bed.
And that's the thing. Yeah, but we're getting there. What do you think, Ken?
Yes.
Hey, good answer.
Good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's a lot of love out there for the Osmos. I'm one of them. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like the Roly, but the thing about the Roly is it's got at least 2 more dimensions of control that the Osmos does not.
True.
And as long as you work at your playing technique, those extra 2 dimensions are extremely useful.
Yeah, I guess
give more colour and context. But it's good that I'm glad that MPE's happened. I'm glad that there's these poly aftertouch keyboards finally here. I've spent 30 years screaming at manufacturers, going, "Why won't you do it?" And they go, "Oh, cost bullshit." So I'm glad it's here. I'm glad it's happening. I want to see more instruments, accepting the information though. That's the next thing. We got controllers coming out of the wazoo. Let's face it now.
I think one of the interesting things about what we do with these things is if you're stuck in a studio or in your bedroom or whatever all day and you never actually get out and perform live, you never really get to explore. Just you don't sort of up your chops. And I think going out and playing live, you become so much better a player than ever you were before, because you have to. And there's kind of you start really paying attention to the craft. And I think what's going to be interesting with MPE and controllers such as the Roly, which is why I find it difficult, but I'm really keen to play. Is that the same thing I think will happen? People will be focusing much more on the performance. I'm not sure you're going to need a bank of 30 keyboards. I think a few, a much smaller number of controllers, but with some really, really decent engines, and it's all going to be about the performance. That's going to be really interesting to see how that develops.
Well, I just said in chat, I'll say it again here, I'm predicting that a lot of poly aftertouch actions are going to start appearing, and we're going to see them on synths from the big makers, and we're going to see them soon. Because, all of its good features aside, the fact is it's the current fad. And, there are, as I guess it was Steve that pointed out in chat, that Fatar are now making poly aftertouch actions. And so beyond the Waldorf stuff, we're going to start seeing them popping up. We're going to see these machines proliferating. May not last for long, but at least we'll have another wave of used ones we can find cheap in skips.
Yeah, they'll probably start in the premium product line, at the flagships, and then work their way down into the. And if they do well enough, they'll work their way down, depending on the cost and benefit ratio in terms of price and performance. But I just want to put a little bit of historical perspective on this thing. When synthesizers first appeared, they weren't attached to keyboards. And in fact, some who were original music concrete kind of guys saw that as cheating. And now I wasn't necessarily one of them, and I'm not advocating on that score. But the point is, keyboards came to be attached to them right around the time of Minimoog and things like that. And then now we assume that they're attached to them, or now we assume they should be, that there should be that comfortable series of switches, as Andrew called them, that allow us to interact with this sound engine in a way that's familiar to a technique we've learned for something else. And as somebody who has played a lot of different instruments in my life and was a brass player all the way through college, I'm quite comfortable learning new instruments. And when I got the Roly, I knew. I don't think I even realized the extent to which your piano technique only gets you maybe halfway there. And that it was going to take years, literally years, before I was going to be willing to play this thing in front of people, because it takes that long to develop a relationship and a voice in a new instrument environment. And I don't see it as just taking a piano and sticking it on a synth engine. It's a completely different experience to me. In fact, I feel more like a trombone player when I'm playing it than I do like a keyboard player most of the time. So I just wanted to kind of just wrap this discussion in the fact that we've come to depend on keyboards to interact with synthesizers, and I mean traditional, as we said, switch-based keyboards. Polyphonic aftertouch has been a factor. I had the privilege to work on a record with Eddie Jobson in the early 1980s, and he had a CS80 and used it quite effectively and loved the poly aftertouch, and I got to play on it, and it felt incredibly cool to me to be able to impart that degree of expression, even just that one additional axis of independent expression for all of the 10 fingers. Now this thing over here gives me 5 per note, and I can barely play it with 2 hands. I'm so busy just trying to be expressive with one. And if I do play it with 2 hands, chances are I'm taking most or all of the pitch variation out, so that it basically plays like a memory foam normal keyboard. So I just wanted to put a little context on the Roly thing, because I think people are disappointed because it's not easy. And I grant you that it's not easy. No instrument is.
I remember years and years ago seeing, I'm trying to remember who the player was, played a lot with Peter Gabriel, had a KX88, and he was controlling I think a DX5 and a couple other things which respond to poly, but he also had the wind controller, which gives you another thing. Now, I bought the wind controller and I used it for a while. I used to love using that thing, but I looked like such a dick with the dribble walking down my chin all the time. I was just so hopeless.
The secret to that is you get the one with the headset that looks like a headset mic, and then you can move it out of the way, and yeah.
Yeah, but it did add another, and it was always that thing of another degree of control. And I think, like you, Richard, I don't think it's the be all and end all, because there will still be entry level, and there is still, we haven't abandoned the piano because it lacks expressivity. Quite the opposite. They have a character, and etc. And with modular, there is still that side of that where plugging those patches and trying to make them do things, and is a wonderful thing. But this is just another area, and I think MPE is a good thing, and I hope it's going to be more widely supported. As to what controllers are going to come out to take advantage of that, that's also going to be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to follow up with a quick question to Richard and an expansion on what he said. We'll start with the expansion, which was actually when the first Moog modular was built. I talked about this a little bit in Synth Gems 1, I think. Bob Moog and Herb Deutsch talked very seriously about whether or not it should have a keyboard. And Bob was worried that it would pin people into traditional modes of thought. And Herb was also worried about that. But then they stopped and they said, if we don't give people a way to mentally and emotionally connect with this thing, it's never going to be anything other than a very expensive toy for most people. And while we are now sort of under the tyranny of the black and whites, the fact that there are so many synthesizers out there these days is probably due to that decision they made after a fair bit of thinking. So Richard is very much correct. And if you want to know what would have happened if they'd gone the other way, just look at Don Buchla.
Yeah.
And to expand on your point, Herb Deutsch was obviously a tremendous influence in that regard, because Herb came into the thing as a musician who happens to be a keyboard player. But let's say it had been Niles Steiner who came in, who basically invented wind controllers because he wasn't a keyboard player.
Yep.
And he came into it through a wind control, which also speaks to the Yamaha thing that Andrew was talking about a minute ago. And so, yes, and I think the fact that it was Herb Deutsch turns out to have been pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could have been anybody who played anything and they would have developed a controller to make it work. And yes, the basic idea was you have to give people a way to interact with this thing that gives it musical qualities. Otherwise, it could just sound like a radio between stations to people, if you know what I mean.
Many years ago, I was working in a studio. I'd got my hands on a Roland SPV 355, which was the pitch to CV sort of synth. You could put anything in the front, and it would work out what the pitch was.
Yeah, it was like. Sorry,
it was an okay thing. And because I knew it kind of well, and I was very much the synthesist, nothing's ever a preset. Everything's always contrived, and I have to get in and mess around. I was working on an album where we got in a saxophonist, brilliant saxophonist called Steve Barnacle. One of the, he's a really, really good guy. And his rig at the time was his saxophone, or clarinet, but saxophone, which he had a rack of these SPV 355s, and he had them set perfectly so that they would follow his pitch, and it would have envelope followers and such, so he could do harmonies and do horn sections by himself. And you know what? They were pretty good. It was a pretty good setup. But because I was such an inveterate fiddler with knobs and synths, I said,
no.
let me just try and and improve things. And so I did. Yeah. I improved it so much that it was unusable for that session. He eventually got it back. He didn't talk to me for a little while, but he did. He did eventually. And I hope if someone ever sees him or meets him and reminds him, just tell him I'm still desperately sorry about that. But that's like the cautionary tale with these things, isn't it? Sometimes yeah, you just go that little bit too far.
Yeah, but with a name like that, he probably stuck around anyway.
Does anyone Does anyone remember seeing a guy, a Yamaha clinician in the 80s named Sal Galena playing their wind controller with a TX-81Z?
Yeah.
It was jaw-dropping. Absolutely jaw-dropping. You know, it's a beautiful thing when that works for somebody. Michael Brecker got pretty good at Lyricon as well, actually.
Oh, yeah. And Niall is a wonderful guy, actually. I actually got to interact with him a bit because he fact-checked all the stuff about the Synthicon in my book. And he's a sweetheart.
I met him once, yeah.
But his whole thing has always been, I had a need. And nobody else was doing it, so I did it. And there were so many other machines out there that we owe a lot to that just came from that. I actually had a breath controller for a while. Yamaha made this beautiful machine, which nowadays you could do the same thing in like something the size of a credit card, and I wish somebody would, called the MC2. Do you guys remember the MC2?
No.
It was a tabletop box that you could attach to any synthesizer, and it basically gave you a mod wheel, a pitch bender, and a breath controller. It was just something you put in line in the MIDI stream, and it would add breath control, pitch bend, and mod wheel. It was a gigantic box for doing so little, which is why I wish somebody would make a smaller one. But I had one for a long time and eventually sold it because it just took up too much space for what it did. But the other day I was cleaning up my studio and I found my breath controller, my BC3A with a headset. And I'm like, well, I've got nothing to plug this into anymore. But if I ever get one of the damn things, then at least I don't have to worry about finding something that doesn't make me have drool down my chin.
Yeah, I remember doing a session with a guy called Courtney Pine. He's been around the block a while. I did quite a lot of work with him. I ended up going out with a girl who I'd met in an out of the way place doing one of those TV telethons, and I was conducting the choir at the end and all the stuff. And I met this girl, and we ended up going out and dating. And one day she said, "Come round to my mum's house. Come and have some dinner." So I think, all right, why not? And I walked in and sat down, and I'm just sitting there, being and about to eat, and in walks Courtney Pine. It's her cousin, and I'd worked with Courtney for, and I'm just, what? You didn't? But so he used to use the, I can't remember if it was the Akai or the Yamaha wind controller, but we did a lot of work with making the Akai sampler, the S1000, and then the 1100 and 3200 respond to his control. He got some amazing stuff out of it, and the guy's an absolute legend, a really, really fine player.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It's just anything we do in this direction is going to be good. The only and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but aside from the Rolly and the Keith McMillan, the Keyboard Pro 4, are there any other five dimension MPE things in currently in production? Because the guy from Centinovo, Felix Visser, made one, but it was a one-off, and I don't know if the $8,000 synthesizer that he put that keyboard action into ever got into production. And then I don't think the instrument does release velocity, so it's 4D.
Seaboard block might, and the Seaboard and the actual blocks, those rectangular ones, I think transmit all five.
All of the Rollies do.
Yeah.
All of the Rollies do.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if there's anything else. I had the Keyboard Pro 4. I was one of the original backers. Waited 3.5 years for it to ship. Had it for about a month. Sold it to somebody who was having really bad arthritis and RSI because he couldn't play keys anymore. And so he was very happy about that. And I never really sort of got back into it again enough to go out and find another one. So the one thing that I loved about the T8 though was it had velocity, aftertouch, and release velocity. So put waggly keys on it and you were good.
I think the T8 was the same keyboard that went into the Synclavier.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was developed by Sequential, and they sold them OEM to New England Digital.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
And these are the things you find out when you're writing a book about all this weird crap rolling around in my head.
You could have asked me.
They also happen to be the second hardest keyboard in the world to work on.
I
What,
thought the
Synclavier?
No, the T8.
The T8.
Oh, T8. I see.
Yeah, 6 hours to calibrate. It's a 6-hour job.
And if you want to change out one of the photoreceptors for the for a key, you have to have special tools to get the nuts loose so you can get the board out.
They're a nightmare. There's a reason
Then,
why.
yeah.
There's a reason why Dave Smith stopped building them. He sold a fair number. He sold several thousand, but he just said, we can't keep doing this. This machine, we can get 6 Prophet 5s out the door in the time it takes us to calibrate, much less build a T8. They were a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was just wondering whether or not. Do you remember Nonlinear bought out the C15? I seem to have some sort of tickle in the back of my brain as to whether or not that was Poly Aftertouch, or they were working on some more. I know they had the 2 ribbons.
Which one?
It wasn't the C15 Nonlinear.
It does not. It does not.
No,
I nearly got my teeth broken because of that. Because I saw it on a demo the very first time it ever appeared anywhere at Superbooth, like 5-6 years ago or whatever it was.
Right.
And I was messing with it, and I said to the developer, this thing is absolutely amazing. I hope you sell a gazillion of them. Where's the Poly Aftertouch? And I swear to God, I saw him draw back like a couple of inches with the fist, and I was like, oh, guess who just stuck his foot in it big time. But he eventually just said, we put enough custom hardware into this thing that there are no actions out there, and at the time there weren't, so I couldn't really blame him. But yeah, that machine, if any synthesizer cried out for an upgrade with a Poly Aftertouch action, it would be the C15. That machine is genius. I will always be a proponent of that machine.
Yep.
I could make a case that the T8 was a proof of concept device that didn't really live up to its potential, but did introduce some groundbreaking technologies.
I would agree.
Thank you. I hoped you would.
Well,
I must admit though the aftertouch system on it was awful.
It was terrible. And, if you were lucky, you understood that calibration was a bitch. And you learned to live with it. My, the maximum value of aftertouch I got out of my T8 varied. Each key had a slightly different scaling.
Interesting.
And
really?
Oh yeah. So, the worst would top out at about 114. And the best would top out about 119. Nothing went higher than that. And so you just learn to program around it. You learn to leave yourself a little bit of slop.
At least it's
so
not that wide a range.
Yeah, and it wasn't that wide a range. It wasn't,
It was between 114 and 119.
Well, yeah,
right,
and the thing
exactly.
is, and Sequential doesn't exactly have the best record for aftertouch. I mean, you guys know the story of the Prophet VS keyboard, right? Mm-hmm. When they designed the aftertouch sensor for it, they tested it sitting on a table on its feet, and that's where it was anchored, and it worked fine. When people started putting them on A-frame stands, so all the weight was being borne on the case, using aftertouch got dangerous because you'd flex the boards and crack them and crack traces.
Well, I mean, they used on the T8 they used draft excluser as the sponge for the aftertouch. So every time you pressed the key, it would change the next time you pressed it how much aftertouch it was going to produce.
Interesting.
Hang on, and they sold this design to NED.
Another thing the T8 does.
Yamaha
You're
wasn't
right.
going to share
It was the only
theirs.
game in town,
Yeah.
basically, except Yamaha.
Another brilliant thing the T8 would do is if you left it on an X stand overnight, the keys in the centre of the keyboard would stick together. They'd rub up. You'd lose the gap where it sank in the middle.
If you put it on an X stand, you had to have at least 3, preferably 4 bars under it, because it was just too goddamn heavy.
Yeah, they go, let's make this out of thin aluminium. Brilliant idea. even though it still weighs as much as Wisconsin anyway.
You've obviously been to Wisconsin.
That's a lot of dairy cows.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's a lot of milk in a T8. Trust me.
Yeah, well, I loved it, but we used to make jokes about it in the dark days before the World Wide Web, when it was only scientists and computer guys sending emails around on the internet. We used to make a joke of it, and there's actually some people who still talk about Mike Metlay's patch library for the Prophet T8. You have the brass, blat. You have the strings, blat. You have the piano, blat. And so blat, BLAAAT got to be a thing for a long time. Yeah. But, seriously, you could actually get some sort of vaguely piano-like sounds out of it. And the release velocity was delightful. It really was. It had one knob. You could use release velocity to control that one envelope stage. And fast releases cut notes off quickly, and gentle releases extended the release section a little bit. And it was just beautiful. It was very nuanced.
So it was one of the first photo-optic key contact systems ever introduced into a synth. So you never had a problem with double clicking or anything like that. That's not going to happen. Although sometimes that board would flex with the wood. The wood of the base of the keyboard would flex, and it would bring the contact board closer to the end of the keys and jam the keys. It would do that, and you'd have to go in and loosen off the nut and put a washer in it to just use as a spacer, and then do it up again, just to pull the board away from the keys again. As the wood was constantly moving around inside the case. It's quite
bizarre. Well, it was organic.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, can you confirm or deny something for me, having opened a lot of keyboard actions?
Indeed.
A lot of people implemented release velocity. I know the Roland U50 did, where you measure attack velocity by how fast it passes by two contacts, and then to get release velocity, you just have to read the contacts in the opposite order.
Yeah. So you have a closed contact from the open contact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so basically, for most of these machines, release velocity was a gimme. It was already there. You didn't need any hardware. And MIDI was already transmitting it. Every single note had a release velocity value. Every note off had a release velocity value. But for whatever reason, a lot of the early DAWs. Sorry, I'm just admiring the sound. So a lot of the early DAWs just automatically set release velocity to 0. They wouldn't even record release velocity. And that's actually something that Ableton doubled down on for a long time. From Ableton 4 until Ableton 11, the DAW did not recognize, you could not record polyphonic aftertouch or release velocity. It wasn't there.
Oops.
I think it's probably because a lot of the guitar keyboards actually didn't have a contact system that would allow them to be able to measure the release velocity on them.
Well, that's fair enough, but the fact is, a lot
of people were using that Fatar keyboard. So,
yep, I get that, but it didn't cost them anything. The bytes were still being taken up in memory. And there's no reason why you couldn't actually record one more goddamn hexadecimal character. Poly aftertouch was a density problem. Poly aftertouch, if you used it a lot, you could crash early computers, because there was just so much data width. But I'm just amazed that it took Ableton this long to suddenly discover polyphonic aftertouch and MPE. And I guess what I'd really like would be to just sort of grab the Ableton faithful by the collar and shake them and say, it was around for a long time.
But maybe that's not their audience. Maybe that's not a kind of controller their audience necessarily wants.
Well, the push 2.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And for Live 10, polyphonic aftertouch, the push 2 sent polyphonic aftertouch, but the way it was transmitted and recorded by Live was proprietary. You couldn't use it as a poly aftertouch device on anything other than recording data in Live or controlling Live. instruments.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
they were. It was a closed system, and then what they've finally done is they finally just opened it up. And the reason they always gave for not doing it earlier was that it would have involved going all the way back down to the base code and rewriting the entire DAW from the ground up. And everybody who's worked on these things knows that you get layers and layers and layers of cruft. People don't want to go down and screw with the stuff at the bottom because, you know, you're looking at ruining this program. It takes real guts to do that.
One of the issues that I know when I joined EMU they faced when they were rewriting all of the code or looking to rewrite all of the code for the E4 Ultras was exactly that problem. Every time someone changed one thing, it screwed everything because it was just a bunch of code. And so making it into an object-oriented piece of coding where you could actually bolt on these things made a huge difference to it. But an awful lot of people get stuck in that, don't they? Like, you know, to actually break it out and create object-oriented coding for a whole DAW, I can only imagine the pain that would have been for them.
Well, I can tell you right now that there's one example in recent history. The code team for Steinberg had been saying for years that they wanted to go and sorry about that. The code team for Steinberg had been saying for years that they wanted to go into Cubase and redo it. And Steinberg was like, "Are you insane?" You know, the potential for disaster was unbelievable. And finally, a couple of the coders just said, you know, screw it. And they left and they went to PreSonus and they created Studio One from the ground up. Studio One was made by the people who wanted to redo Cubase, and for good, reasonable sound economic reasons were stopped from doing so. And
I think eventually they may have actually.
Oh, they eventually did.
Yeah.
But you know, they lost a lot of innovation when they lost those guys. Studio One is actually a really nice little program.
It is.
You know, my complaint with it is that they named it Studio One, which meant that the minute they went to version 2, people got really confused.
Yeah.
Studio One 2,
fair.
Studio One 2.5, Studio 3. Yeah. Anyway.
So talking of such things, we've been talking an awful lot about controllers and articulation and 3D, 4D, and 5D. One of the wonderful things that everyone's been battering on about recently, I think, Kent, is the Osmos. And don't we have a little something on that? Someone's done so, even though it's not yet properly released, or rather it's released but no one's got them, or very few.
Yeah, you're going to make me do this, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, let's see how much I can fuck this up. Let me see now. Oh, here we go. Right. I think that works, doesn't it? Does that work? No, it does not. There we go. Right. Yeah, this thing. What was it again, mate? Hang on, I've got to go to the other window. Bloody thing, I hate this. Right, here we go.
It's a giant piece of wood.
It's a giant piece of wood.
It's an Osmos made into an upright piano. Yay!
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So it looks very dainty, doesn't it? Let's have a... Yeah, look, there's a video. Hopefully this doesn't make half the people in the chat want to commit seppuku. Right, here we go.
Stop typing, Richard.
Yeah. What? What?
What are we seeing that isn't an Osmos? What are we seeing that is any? I mean, all of that is just Osmos presets. I didn't see, I don't have one in front of me, but I didn't see anything that a regular Osmos couldn't do. What were all the little buttons and knobs and displays for?
He barely touches them.
Yeah,
He doesn't touch them at all, as far as
And
I can see.
and the
If you go far enough, he does at one point actually grab a slider and move it.
oh my God!
I would have shot myself in the face by then. I believe it's a looper as well. So he uses it.
Oh,
as a
thank goodness.
Yeah. You're sort of like
Because you can't find any of those these days.
no, and
To put behind your traditional Osmos
yeah,
that you didn't have to cannibalize, so you could still bring it to the gig.
yeah, yeah,
Oy.
yeah. I'm not quite sure why he needed to spray the keys.
No, I'm
silver.
sure there's
Mike-
some kind of romance that drove
Mike-
this, and I appreciate romance. I do love the fact that somebody cared enough to want to do this, but I don't understand.
That's an ugly looking box. That's a really. Now, and you'll forgive me because I actually found this and I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And we haven't, because we've been pushed for time, hadn't had a chance to have a look at it. So, yeah.
Now we have.
That's a pig with lipstick on. That's
Moving on. No, seriously. I mean, just why? Why? And it looks like he's got, what is that? Tape reels in the middle of the panel.
Yeah, it looks like a cassette player. It looks like a
Exactly.
Vincent Echo.
Well,
A
on the
Vincent
other hand,
Echo.
apparently cassette culture is coming back in. That you can spend. I love this. You can spend $350 to buy a Eurorack module that lets you put in a cassette tape, record audio on it, and then manually. No, actually, you can't record. You have to pre-record the cassette on something else, and then you have a crank to manually turn the audio back and forth to do scratchy stuff. And they want $300 for this. And I'm thinking, I'm in the wrong business. I'm in the wrong business. Somebody should, a $400 Eurorack module and put a back scratcher on it.
Somebody's
can do this.
Somebody's been at a bar and they've had a margarita or a few too many beers with one of their mates, and they've gone, "How difficult could it be? This would be brilliant."
And you know what?
I know exactly what they should call it too. The Wubba Wubba machine.
I don't remember what it's called. I should look for I should look for the website. But does anybody have anything like at all constructive to contribute to this not at all constructive machine discussion?
Humor, no.
It's nice to see cassette making a comeback.
Is it? Seriously?
Yeah, stick it on the front of a piano.
Yeah, because I know the next time I have to tune a cassette deck, I want to have to go behind a piece of wood to do it.
Yeah, wonderful. I will kill you slowly with a spoon. And we've got all these kids who are like, yeah, man, we're getting back to cassettes. I'm sorry, it's like me and modular synthesizers. I played modular synthesizers when modular synthesizers were all they were. And when Oberheim invented a modular synthesizer that could play chords and remember my patches, I was so done.
Apparently, the interpretation of this Osmos also comes with a Pico drum modules, turning it into an impressive patchable groove box, and
just what we need.
There is also a built-in speaker.
I remember the built-in speaker, and I saw the little holes that he cut for the built-in speaker when I looked at it just before.
Wow!
Oh my God. My heart may stop.
I should have read this before.
So how much cocaine had you taken when you come up with this design? Oh,
Exactly.
a bit.
Yeah. This poor bastard.
I could murder a curry.
This poor bastard's going to watch this show and remember this conversation for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and you know what? When he becomes a multimillionaire, we're going to remember this conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what,
There's
if he is watching this show, talk to me, and I will put you on the right path of how to customize the scene, because that wasn't it.
We love you, whoever you are. We applaud your initiative.
He wants to
really
buy
do
a
that.
touch digital controller.
We applaud your initiative. It was a really good
There's
It
a
was a really good
five-legged
effort.
horse if ever I saw one.
It was really a good effort, and you only had to mangle a rare as rocking horse poop synthesizer to do it. So good for you.
Cannibalize
Yeah.
a precious device that people are waiting months to own.
At least I waited for the Rise 2 to come out before I resprayed my Rise 1 into rose gold. I mean, you know, brand new Osmos. I could have had that Osmos.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
Can I bring up a topic? I don't know if it's on Kent's list, but I'd like to bring up a topic because this is something.
I'm hoping it isn't.
This is something that has been talked about a lot in chat, and I want to bring it up here.
Good.
Humblebundle.com. If you guys are not familiar with humblebundle.com,
For all your bee needs.
Humble Bundle does these offers where they get promo rights from various software companies, and normally they're doing stuff for gaming, but they have a music creation bundle. It's called the Level Up Music Creators Power Pack. Now, it's got Cherry Audio Memory Mode, Cherry Audio PS20. It's got the Mixcraft 9 Windows DAW. It's got something like, I don't know, 50 loop libraries and other stuff like that. And you get all of this for $35. It's insane. You can get some of these libraries for as little as $1. So, you know, it's like you get to decide. The 47 item bundle is, I think, $35, and you get all of this stuff. And then there's a 22 item bundle, which, you know, has, and I don't know whether it all comes, I guess you can buy one. Oh, they're different. Each of these bundles is different. So there are different things available. And when you put it all together, yeah, it's got the Galactic reverb. It's got CA 2600. I mean, there's all kinds of Cherry Audio stuff. If you haven't, you know, sort of gone down that way, Voltage Modular Ignite is in there. So, you know, it's ridiculous, you know. And apparently the money is going to charity. So, you know, humblebundle.com and look for the Level Up Music Creators Power Pack. It's insane. Yeah, it says you'll get 9 items. You're missing out on memory mode and 37 others. Pay at least $20 to get all items. So it's just insane. I don't know how Humble Bundle does it, and these things are legit. They're not cracks. So
yeah, the 47 item bundle, you can pay at least £16.22 for these 47 items. That includes the memory mode, the PS20,
Galactic.
Yeah.
CA2600 and all these libraries. So, you know, even if you don't use the sample libraries very much, for a grand total of 15,000 loops and samples, how long it'll take you to go through that. It's just insane. So the full link is too long to post. Thank you, Synthetic. So I'm just going to say it's the Level Up Music Creators Power Pack. And it's going to be available. I think someone in chat said it's available until the 25th. So they are, Taosophie Music says, I waited until I got something official from Cherry Audio before I bit. Wasn't familiar with Humble. Humble Bundle doesn't do stuff with music software very often, but when they do, it's killer.
That's a lot of content.
It's a ton of content, and it's Cherry Audio stuff. And the money's going to charity. So, you know, what the hell? Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, good. It's good value on those products for sure.
Anyway, I sing the Body Electric says, you'll never know when you're finished. You'll be going through loops forever.
Well, that's the thing about loops, isn't it? They never finish.
Yeah, but all you need is one. All you need is one.
And if you are into loop packs, I forgot one of the things you get is a $25 coupon for the
Yeah.
Humble Bundle website. So
Yeah.
they're giving you $25 worth of loop packs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just kind of stupid. And somebody's already bought it. Somebody bought it online while we were talking about it. And yeah, and it's got, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mixcraft 9. Mixcraft 9 is a Windows DAW. It is probably the best kept secret in pro audio right now. It is an absolutely beautiful, very affordable, beginner friendly DAW. And there are people, Mixcraft. And it's Windows only, and a lot of people consider it sort of the Windows answer to GarageBand, only it's way, in my opinion, better. It's got a more traditional interface, and it's got more things. It handles all the standard plugins. Some of the freebie instruments that come with it are amazing, and it's dirt cheap. And the guys who created, I forgot, you guys should know this. The company that makes Mixcraft is Acoustica, which is the partner firm of Cherry Audio.
Yeah.
So this is Dan Goldstein. This is Dan Goldstein's team, and it's a, the fact that you're getting, it's probably a lower level of Mixcraft 9, not the best one, but still, it'll get you. It'll easily get you going. It's a wonderful, wonderful little DAW.
I'm also impressed that they've got voltage modular on this.
The Ignite package, yeah.
Yeah, which looks, which I've heard is a functional instrument.
It is, yeah.
Interesting.
So, anyway, it is probably too good to be true, but I mean, seriously, if these are they're not cracked, and they're not. I mean, it's stupid money. How can you not do this? I'm going to do it myself, I think.
Do you know, I'm going to join you. I think I'll throw away all the loops.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, $35 for 6 or 7 or 8 Cherry Audio products.
It's mad. It is mad. Thank you for the heads up on Mixcraft as well. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, Mixcraft is a very well kept secret. And it's a pity because it's a really, really good little program. So there, I put in a plug, Dan. I love you.
And can I just ask you a question? There's some seasoned folk here who should know about this as well.
Seasoned as opposed to rotting.
What does that mean exactly?
There's some rotting. There's some rotting folk here. I judging by the smell. Has anyone had any experience of the Harrison Mixbus 32?
Yes.
Package?
Yes.
And
it is a very, very good DAW for doing big mixes. The Harrison plugins, the stuff that the Harrison guys are really sweet people. They're still making hardware mixers, and the fact that they continue to upgrade this thing, Mixbus 32 is not expensive. The DAW signal processing, the sound of it is gorgeous. It really does sound like a Harrison console. It is.
I'm at the store.
Sorry.
It's okay. Can't talk now, hon. I'm in therapy. But no, it is a surprisingly good sounding mix engine. I find the multi-track recording side of it very clunky.
Yeah.
That's just me. And the user interface on the tracking side is not the easiest to use. It's not very expensive, and it's kind of if you want to export tracks from your regular DAW and then give them a little bit of Harrison Mojo, it's a very nice thing to use. It's not expensive. The software support is incredible. They're always doing updates and bug fixes and adding features and so on. It's a very, very nice little package. I don't use it because I'm drowning in DAWs. As it is, I've got too many on my system, and I'm only using 2. For the tracking side, if you like the interface of Harrison and you want something that's got a little bit more graphic mojo, get Reaper. Reaper's the second biggest secret in DAWs. It costs practically nothing, and it's effing brilliant. And the user community is incredible because they've got this holy war mentality of we're going to convince the world that this is the best DAW ever. And a lot of them create plugins and find code patches and stuff like that. So it's constantly being supported and constantly being upgraded. And the guys at Kakas, the company that makes it, they deserve all the credit because I've got no idea how they keep their doors open. It's incredibly cheap for what you get. So there.
Open source.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Richard Hilton,
Sir.
is your ringtone Wagner's Killed a Wabbit?
No.
What?
It's Bartok from the Miraculous Mandarin,
Oh, okay.
if you must know.
I see.
I was going to say that. I was going to.
Because it's just coincidence. Because on my phone, when it goes off, it does Killed a Wabbit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have multiple ringtones depending on who's calling me.
Me too.
Some, you know,
Oh, yeah.
I've got a couple of people in my phone directory, which basically I have somebody from some movie going, "Oh God, not you again," on an infinite loop. But anyway,
I have a ringtone for example, for band members, fellow band members. That's
So,
one of
that
the
sounds
songs
like an
that
orchestra tuning
one
up.
of the songs that we play.
Huh.
You know, I have a ringtone for the boss, a different one of the songs that we play.
Darth Vader's theme.
No. No. One of his songs.
Oh, okay.
Wife gets Ride of the Valkyries. Way to go, Manny.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, wife in my case gets a beautiful Beethoven piano piece that I sing lyrics to that goes, "Oh, it's your wife, your wife, your wife."
As opposed to come into my shop, let me cut your crop.
Exactly.
Yes.
Daintily.
Billy. Daintily.
Hey you.
Hey,
Use of X to
out
be
there in the
perplexed.
cold.
Can't you see you're next?
Oh, so next.
My mom's
we-
ringtone is bad out of hell.
We shouldn't know the lyrics to this, Richard. You know that.
My children could sing this thing in its entirety by the age of 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was the law.
Absolutely. Or you don't get dinner tonight. No, I
Yeah.
didn't do that. I'm joking. I didn't do that.
He did that.
No, I didn't do that.
He really did that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that. They
Welcome
wanted
to
to.
an episode of Chicago. And I don't know if you guys get that reference. It's a streaming. It's the second season of a streaming series
Chicago.
about a couple, a married couple who wander into musicals as they happen. So the first season was called Schmigadoon. And the second season is Schmicago, and it's all the same cast. The couple are the same actors, but then all of the other cast members are now members of this new musical in different roles. So they last season they walked into Schmigadoon, and this season they walk into Schmicago, and it's very, very funny. And the more you know about musical theater, the funnier it is.
That's
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that one out.
Wait for Moulin Rouge. So,
It'll happen.
Moulin Rouge.
What about Schmatz?
yes,
Schmatz. Is that cat Schmat on the floor?
Schmantum of the Opera. We can carry this.
Oh yeah, we can keep going. We can keep going for a while. Let's not.
No.
Oklahoma.
The schmound of music.
The schmound.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So have Sequential got any news this week?
Oh, you're not going to make me run another video, are you?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
they've been
right.
so terrible so far. I've got to go for
We
a.
might as well do a show. Why not?
Yeah,
We're
well,
all
okay.
here.
Well, hopefully this one will not make you want to rip your intestines out and strangle yourself with it.
I've got my knife standing by.
Okay, are you ready? I'm going to try and now make this do what it's supposed to do. God almighty. Yes, here we go.
Oh, very nice.
Ta-da! Ta-da! Oh,
Mike wins.
So, Take 5 version 2, which does that make it Take 7 or Take 10? I guess it depends on the order of.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, that I think that's great. I think it's always wonderful that they wring a little extra out of the firmware. I have a very good friend in the industry who's been around for a long time. Actually, he used to work at Emu. Dennis, God, now I'm blanking on his name, of course, because I'm trying.
Lebrecht?
Yeah, Dennis Lebrecht. Sorry,
Dennis Lebrecht and I used to work together. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, but his son now works at Sequential, building these things.
Wow.
And
Cool.
and I, every time I see them come out with something new and cool, the two things I think of are, wow, did the Lebrecht kid work on this? Because it's amazing. And so Houston Singletary is going to demonstrate it the next time he's on Rocky Mountain Synth Group, because Houston does a lot of their programming. Hi,
Who's
Houston.
Sequential?
Yeah. And so just good stuff. I love the extra things they added. I really do.
I think the envelope repeat, the LFO slew. This is all kind of nods to what a lot of the other manufacturers have been doing with their sound engines, and just adding in these extra bits. It makes a difference, and it's a freebie. It's a freebie. You got to love that, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be able to hear a Mac Mini from the other side of the room, are you?
No, you are in fact not.
And what exactly do you hear? I hope it's fan noise.
It's a lot of fan noise.
Okay, well that's encouraging. It doesn't sound like a jackhammer.
Well, if it is the fan, this fan is made from sand and marbles in a tin.
Kent, go get yourself a free app called Max Fan Control.
Oh yeah.
So it'll display on the menu bar just how fast your fans are running, and an even better one actually is iStat Menus, which is also free for the basic set.
Menus, yeah.
And in the menu bar it tells you what your CPU temperature is, which is always kind of fun.
Oh, okay. Does it come up with a picture of the scream
When
when it's time to go and buy another one?
I haven't pushed it that hard.
I wish they'd get rid of that graphic with the nurse and some guy bent over and the nurse has got a thermometer.
Bad memories, huh?
Sorry.
Oh, dear.
Boom, boom.
Okay.
Well, I know
guys.
somebody who just bought a new computer, Kent, and he recommended.
Yeah. No. Seriously, I am looking now.
So
Well,
has
listen, I'm running on a 13-year-old Mac Pro right now, and believe me, I'm so ready. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry for cutting you off, Andrew. Has anybody ...
Has anybody replaced a Mac Pro recently? I was going to suggest, just asking. That's all. That was just. I was going to ask if anyone's had anyone's actually bought or had any use of, or would like the Take 5. Is there anything recommending it over anything else?
It has fans. I'm not in the market, so I don't know as much about it as some other machines. But it seems like, and I'm sure people are going to leap into chat and correct me, but it seems like Sequential sort of has two paths here. They have the stuff that tends to have the slightly more futuristic, flexible digital interfaces, and then they have the stuff that tends to be more sort of one function per knob, sort of a little bit more hands-on. And my take is that the Pro 3 is in the former camp, and the Take 5 is in the latter camp. That would be sort of my feel. No, Synth Addict, I never got a trash can Mac. I haven't been able to afford a genuinely new Mac in God knows how long.
Did this synthesizer sell well?
The Take 5 is still selling, I think.
I see that. It's still in their product line. But
there's definitely a lot of love for it.
I think so. I think there are people because there are people who occasionally get put off by the stuff like the extra ribbons and the fact that stuff is in digital menus and it sounds good. It's just a very
I'm
nice.
sure it does.
It's a very nice sounding machine. Now I have to say I'm not a huge after the T8. I've never been a huge fan of sort of the overall sound of the sequential analog engine. I've always found it a little bit rough for me. The T8, people complained that the T8 was too smooth and too muffled, but it was just about right for me. I'm an Oberheim guy. I really like how the Oberheim audio chain, and you would get these things where somebody would be demoing a Pro 2 or a Pro 3. And I had a Pro 1 back in the day. And people would be demoing it, and it's just like, check out this gnarly bass. And, they, slam a chord. And I'm thinking, I want to die now. I just want to die. And
I'm looking at it now. Even now, the price is still sort of £1,200-1,300. So I guess, or 1,400 quid, whatever. That's then in ASM Hydrosynth Deluxe territory, isn't it?
It is. Well, no, it's in Hydrosynth territory for sure. But the Deluxe is $2,000.
But it's a budget product in their line. It's considered a compact synth budget kind of, as it looks to me on their website anyway.
Yep.
Which is interesting because it does seem fully featured and it sounds, the demos I'm hearing sound good.
It's a nice machine.
But I don't lust after it like I do a Trigon. I must say, I am in lust with the Trigon.
I think, Richard, that may be the first time I've ever heard anybody use the words lust and Trigon in the same sentence.
There you go.
What is it that turns you on about it? I don't know enough about
everything I've heard online sounds amazing. I just like the sound of it.
Well,
it reminds me of my love of the Memory Moog. What it is.
And that's fine. I had the same feeling about the OB6.
I love the OB6 too, and that's another synth I would own. Yeah.
But I have. Oh, and Ato Z says the Take 5 is a replacement for the Mofo X4, and the Mofo X4, was a menu diver's delight.
Fair enough.
And Dave Surchek is online. Hi, Dave. And somebody.
So the Trigon's 3,002.
Yeah, and I'm not.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but
Would you not therefore look at getting the Oberheim, the new Oberheim instead?
I can look all I want.
Nope.
It doesn't cost anything to look, Andrew.
No, I know. So Richard, what's your take on that? You're quite vociferous there.
I love the old Oberheim sound, but it's really only good for a fairly limited number of things that I do. Whereas this synthesizer, as was the Memory Moog, is something that I found very applicable to things I wanted to do and sounds I wanted to make. And it's really not any more complicated than that. It's purely just a taste thing. There's nothing wrong, for sure, with that Oberheim product. It's gorgeous, and I lust after it from more of a distance. Like, I don't have to own one, I just want to play one. But the Trigon is something I would actually consider owning, and there haven't been that many synthesizers since the Memory Moog that I can say that about.
Yeah, but at least the Trigon doesn't come with that, constant fear that it may jump up and bite you in the arse at any moment.
You mean like a Memory Moog?
Yeah, the Memory Moog was famous for that.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
But it's not so much that I want the user experience of the Memory Moog on that level.
No.
It's more the sounds and the feeling that you have when you're working it.
How engaged you are with it and how much it sits your sound palette.
Yeah. And it's purely a personal taste thing. There's nothing wrong with the Oberheim product. It's brilliant. And the fact that they have Marcus Ryle there doing it is just awesome because he was there from the beginning. From OBX onward, he was there.
Yep. And Marcus is a good friend. And and it's just, I mean, it's a thing of beauty, but I don't have the space for it, and I sure as hell don't have the money.
Right. Well, nor do I. But the Trigon is also small, fairly small. It's not very big. Doesn't need to be big.
It's in the same form factor as the OB6. Yeah. You know, it's a nice, neat little machine. The functions are laid out clearly, and it sounds great. But
well, the Take 5 seems rather cheap to me in comparison to, say, like how much Pro 3 is.
It does less. It's got a more focused feature set, and someone in chat says that you can find a Take 5 for close to $1,000 now. I'd like to know where, but hey,
that's if you can get that sound for $1,000, that's always a good deal because I'm sure their products sound great.
And then there are things like the Novation Summit. Have you played around with those at all? They're beasts.
I've tried the Peak. I've never had a chance to try the Summit.
I think the Summit is essentially two peaks, but
Twin Peaks.
Sorry,
Twin Peaks.
Oh, very good. I just really, you were just talking about things that fit your sound palette and your modus operandi, Richard. From the Supernova 2, the fully expanded Supernova 2, I just fell in love with them. I've still got it. It's a lovely, lovely synth. I really, really like it, and it's a great mother keyboard as well. You can do all sorts of throwing stuff out in up to 8 parts. It's a really good machine. I've not yet had the Summit, but I am beginning to lust after it, I have to say.
Interesting. Cool.
Fat Dust, you went there.
What?
Sorry, just a comment in chat that I will not repeat over the air.
Yes.
Moving on. No,
I'm reminded of the Monty Python routine where Cleese spends the whole thing looking over here going, so when will you be ready to go? And the guy is going, I'm over here. And he go, oh, yeah. So when will you be ready to go? And then at some point later on, they're talking about a mountaineering expedition, and he says the Twin Peaks of Kilimanjaro.
Oh, yeah.
Both
peaks. Both peaks.
Well, that explains what happened to the first expedition. They went through the bridge between the two peaks.
And are you here for the 5-minute argument or the full half hour?
I told you
just
once.
the 5 minutes.
You're here to complain. Look at these shoes.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is abuse.
The Python Sketch Network is what
quick. We're just boom. Everybody's got them.
We're all of a certain age. My older daughter knows what Monty Python is. My younger daughter doesn't give a rat's ass.
I see.
We're the right age to have all this stuff memorized.
Yeah.
I had a friend in grad school who asked a girl out, beautiful young lady, very Catholic. He took her out on a movie date, had no idea what Monty Python's Life of Brian was. That was their last date.
I could have done the Book of Mormon, I suppose.
Lupins. I need more lupins.
He's just a very naughty boy.
I need Mary Queen of Scots. I am. Take this. Yes. I think she's dead. No, I'm not.
So come on, do we have any more?
We gotta
Is there
come
any
up
more
with-
news and subjects knocking about?
Well,
Anything
there
fantastic going on that we can talk about without being shot by the NDA police?
Anybody in chat got anything that they'd like commentary on? You know, desperate. Enough of them.
My new
You guys are
computer's
cracking
coming
my
Monday.
wife up. Well, it's good that we know something.
Desperate for content.
there is. We were talking again last week and the week before about events, about NAMM, and about whether or not these things are still appropriate, which manufacturers might go, all that kind of stuff. And I think the consensus was the rise of the boutique festival from all boutique manufacturers seems to be the way things are heading. And there's a rather brilliant one happening, I think, later on this month in France, which is the Synth Fest France show. I think it's on for 3 days. It looks like it has about 1 billion people speaking. It's got, of course, unsurprisingly, Kodomo there with the Mask One, which has now you won't believe this, but it has a manual, a brilliant manual written by I can't remember who, some bloke.
Yeah.
Vermicelli.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. I'm looking now at the list of manufacturers or just your people there, and it's not the biggies. It's people like Kodomo, well, Korg are there, curiously, Oberheim, NR Synth, Munyar, BVR Instruments, Basti Instruments. There's Arturia are there. There's a whole bunch of people going, and there's a huge number of talks being given and demonstrations. It looks like it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be a good show, and along with other shows we've already mentioned, Super Booth. I've been working in the voiceover room too much. Yeah, Super Booth. So, is anyone going to be going to this? He said, knowing that absolutely none of us will.
I wish I could, actually. It's about a week too early for me. I'm going to be flying over to Europe to do Super Booth and some other stuff in early May, and I'm going to miss it. And I'm sorry I am, because I think these local specialty conventions really deserve a lot of push, because that's where we're going to get the real benefits, I think, going forward.
And I think the opportunity to network, someone like France, they've got a very vibrant synth community over there. Lots of people making some really, really clever things. Osmos, over there, and always have had that. They've got a very independent and completely ignore the rest of the world. We're going to do it. We're going to do it that way, sort of thing. And that's good. That's a good thing. So I'd really rather like to get along to that, and I'm just trying to see whether or not I can.
Where's it going to be? I mean, France is a pretty big country. Sorry, we lost you there. You just muted yourself, Andrew.
There we go. It's going to be in France. And
where in France?
Yeah, that's right.
Flat bit.
That's right. The bit there. I'm just going to have a look now. Where does it say?
You're killing me, Smalls.
Which side of the Pyrenees?
Nantes, which is south of France. Nantes is a beautiful place. Has the most astonishing gardens. I've been there many a time and had a sherbet or two. So Nantes is south of France.
Wonderful. Well,
Nantes.
For the Nantes.
Nantes.
Yeah.
Nantes.
Probably pronounce it like that. Yeah.
Nantes in your pants. I fully support all of these things that are starting to happen everywhere. You know, we're gonna start seeing them springing up, I think, in more and more places. Having something in the south of France, which draws people from Italy, from Portugal. Portugal's got a huge synth community. I mean, what's really funny is these things are now, woodwork squeaks, out come the freaks. They're everywhere. And I think what a lot of people are discovering sort of is that these groups of people were there all along, and they were sort of living in isolation. When I first moved out here into Colorado, I was sure I was the only ambient musician in the state. And we've now got a synth group that has 600 members.
Wow.
It's, you can find these communities everywhere. You just have to know how to look for them. And you have to avoid a lot of the mistakes that these communities make getting started. Primarily, you can't let ego get involved. Anytime ego gets involved, you're frickin' doomed. But anyway,
interesting. It's interesting how the European scene is developing as well, because it was once upon a yes, I know. It was once upon a time. Once upon a time, a lot of the boutique stuff or the sort of innovative stuff was coming from Germany. And there's a lot more going on around, so France, Denmark, Portugal, as you say, Switzerland. There's a lot of really interesting. Italy, of course. Italy's always had a really mad number of manufacturers of really odd synths, which are just brilliant. I saw a video on a museum over there that's got things I've never heard of, and some that I have. But I want to go. I just want to go and visit this museum. There are some bonkers synths there.
Oh yeah. Everybody's flipping through, my book, and it's just like the Elgam carousel. How the hell did the Elgam carousel get into this book? And the answer is because it had the world's first practical arpeggiator.
Oh, really?
And, yes. It was a little, organ accompanist type thing. And they didn't have a name for it. They hadn't invented, the term arpeggiator yet. So on the front panel, it's called Crazy Hands. The rhythm section is called the ragtime. The arpeggiator is called Crazy Hands, and it has the single most important control on the front panel that any synthesizer has ever had in the history of electronic music. And since it's vanished, we have suffered. There's an Add Maracas button.
Add Maracas.
Add Maracas. So you've got Crazy Hands, Ragtime, and Add Maracas. And the funny thing is, it's called the Elgam, ELGAM carousel. And there's a carousel owner on YouTube who does demos of it. And you put the damn thing through a 1.5 echo and a little bit of reverb. Basically, it sounds like 1970s Tangerine Dream, all in one little ugly box. It's quite extraordinary. and it's Italian. It's just you throw up your hands and you say, yeah, this is what they come up with. You know, I mean, this is the company that gave us the FM based string synthesizer. It's like,
that's
what?
right. Yes,
the Elka, the Elka 44. It's just like, what? Or was it the Orla? And these weird Bontempi organs and
So I was once looking at a job with a music company called Music Industries on Long Island, who were a distributor for many, many different products at the time. And the day I happened to go there for an interview, the owners with whom I was interviewing had a meeting scheduled with some Italian company that were coming in to pitch something, and I don't even remember what it was. And I was invited into this meeting, which I thought was really odd because they hardly know me. I came recommended from somebody mutual, but they hadn't hired me yet. And they put me on the spot in front of these people. And what did I think? But ultimately, it was a really embarrassing thing because I really didn't think much of their product, and it was wacky in the kind of ways you guys are intimating about these products. It had some like extreme wackiness to it, like integration of features that really had nothing to do with this product that were left over from some other product or whatever. It just didn't seem to make that much sense to me and didn't seem that saleable, and I had to try to find a way to say that without saying it. It was memorable, and I haven't thought of it since the day that it happened. And now you guys talking about Italian manufacturers and the quirky kind of stuff. I mean, sure, I think they came up with Elka and Krumar, if I'm not mistaken, in Italy. And the Panther organ, I believe, that I grew up playing was a Elka product, I think, and came from Italy. But
well, they also had oh God, of course I'm blanking on the name. The guy in the Doors played one of their organs, and so did Klaus Schulze. He used all kinds of their gear, and I'm totally blanking on it.
Not Bontempi.
No, not Bontempi. It was.
Okay.
It's gonna drive me. It's gonna drive me freaking crazy until somebody. Farfisa. Thank you. I knew somebody in.
Farfisa,
well,
Farfisa
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
Italian.
yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
By the way, I've just posted the link to the video for this synth museum in the chat if anyone's interested.
Oh, cool.
It's a very cool thing to watch. It's 32 minutes long, so we can't play it here, unfortunately, Ken. I know that's a great shame for you.
Yes, I'm torn.
oh dear.
Are you rip torn?
Oh, no, probably not.
Okay.
Ouch.
No. Haven't got the girth required. He's huge like an oak.
Skipping swiftly on.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
And Puricelli's watching back, and he's just at this point he's past the wine. He's pouring whiskey in his wine glass.
No, I give my child over. Oh no!
Resting it on his precious DX1.
Yeah.
Because my franchise going. Yeah, well.
It used to be so dignified, the Pro Synth Network.
Yeah, I mean, how bad did it get that I had to host it? I mean, really.
No,
We've kind of what we've done is we've done the equivalent of taking someone's child and then filling it full of E numbers, so it goes mad, bonkers, and then we're going to give it back, and he's going to go, what?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the signs they used to have up in stores here, which you're not allowed to put up anymore for various reasons. But it used to say, unattended children will be given coffee and a cat.
No, I must admit, I think Robbie must be sitting at home now looking at his kit and going, I should have bloody asked you to do it. Dexterous pause, you see. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, this is what happens when you hand the asylum over to the inmates.
Yeah. There you go.
Come on, guys. 14 minutes. We can do this.
We can do this.
Yeah,
we
can.
do this.
It's just
What else is exciting? Oh, I know.
Go on.
Witty.
Oh,
Witty.
thank Christ for that. I'm so thirsty.
Witty. That's the ticket.
Half God, half beast. E's are ecstasy.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
full of E's.
Yeah.
I never know where the line is drawn until I cross it.
Where do you live? Sweden?
So I've got a very interesting story about that. If it's, I'm not sure really. Do you remember back in the 90s, when the whole rave scene, the culture started of ad hoc parties thrown up in the middle of a field somewhere, certainly in the UK, where people would just turn up and
Raves, I think they were
raves.
called.
Exactly, that's what
I
it's
think
called.
they were called.
Boots and cats and boots and
They
cats.
were. And somehow or another, I was working with Rhythm King Records, working with some of their artists on productions and various other things. And we got a call one day to say, look, meet us. And it was a call, meet us somewhere. There will be a call at a phone box just around the corner, because it was before mobile phones properly. And, we'll tell you where there's something going on and you've got to come. So we went, okay. We had no idea what it was about. We were expecting to go to a gig somewhere. And we got this call, and it was for something called biology, I think, or history or biology. And it was a gig that was being held at which the KLF were going to play.
All right.
And so we got Rhythm King. We got Rhythm King's taxi account to take us out into the middle of nowhere to a field in which this big tent had been thrown up, and there were lights there, and there were people streaming in. And we went backstage because, hey, we were famous, right? So we went backstage, and the guys were there, and someone one of the bands pulled out this lovely little beaker of clear liquid and said, right, everyone put your finger in, do that, and then we'll get on. And so everyone did. And I thought, how badly could it go? Because I was stupid, right?
Oh,
It was MDMA. I'd never heard of MDMA or ecstasy. I'd never heard of it. But I spent a very long time being very in love with everyone and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's when I'm old enough so that I remember its predecessor, MDA, which was a less refined chemical, but it was very popular at parties when I was coming up, and you could always tell because MDA makes you very gray and sweaty and affectionate. Not horny, but affectionate. You just
and your teeth.
And you'd always be able to find the house on the block that had the MDA party because somebody would be in the front lawn just hugging a tree.
I just remember staring out at this crowd of people all looking like lunatics, chewing madly and being very, very excessively cuddly, and then a lot of dicks you are. Yeah. It was mad. My only experience of that, but it was mad.
Well, it is LSD was the other good one that you could get. People would sneak you. I had a friend who was
That's cruel.
It's terrible.
That is cruel. It's
cruel. I mean, I could speak in favor of LSD all afternoon, but that's a horrible idea. Giving it to somebody who doesn't know they're getting it.
Yeah.
Well, I had a friend in college who was a budding baseball player, but he couldn't. He was a great pitcher, but he couldn't throw a fastball because he was too sort of big and bulky. And one day he decided in his senior year that he was not going to try out for the college baseball team again. Screw it. There was a Grateful Dead concert in town, so he dropped some acid. And then he got a phone call saying that the first string pitcher had finally, had injured himself, and there was a spot on the roster. So come on out. And he's like, can I do this in time? So he suits up, grabs his glove, runs down to the stadium. He's figuring, they'll ask me for my fastball. It'll be terrible, and I'll be out of here. And he gets out on the mound, and the pitcher's like, come on, Ron, you got it this year. You've got it this year. And he just says,
and starts laughing.
He was one of the first college pitchers to throw fastballs faster than 100 miles an hour. And they were just like, you're great, you're brilliant. He's like, leaves, goes to the Grateful Dead concert, can't remember anything, wakes up the next morning, he's torn every muscle in his right shoulder because he had no feedback to tell him that he was hurting himself. And and he never actually threw in a game because even when he healed, he couldn't do that fastball again, and the coaches got ticked off. But he got his college letter, and it was all due to LSD.
Wow!
So there's a Metlay story to sort of But wow, MDMA at a rave.
There was a famous Major League Baseball pitcher, I believe, pitched for the
Doc Ellis. He pitched for the Pirates.
At least one guy has pitched really, really well.
Yeah, Doc Ellis pitched a no-hitter, tripping balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had EMF here. They were picking up. What was it they were picking up? Oh, it was a TB303, and I think it was at least 3 of them turned up. Doorbell goes, dogs are going as usual. I go to the door, and the first thing, there's a guy wearing like a flat cap, and he's gone, all right, can I use your toilet? No, don't bother like that. He's like that into my mum's basket, flower basket at the door. Wow. Comes back up again. He goes, oh, does the other basket. He goes, oh, he says, oh man, I'm so fucked. Oh man. I go, we come for that seat. The silver thing. I went, oh yeah, the CB. There you go, mate. And he said, oh, brilliant. And his 2 mates help him out to the car. And he was like, yeah, rock and roll.
Talk about making an entrance.
Yeah. My mum comes in the door. She's going,
buckets of
"What is
barf."
that smell? What is it?" I go, "I don't know." I said, "Oh, no." I said, one of the band guys just been sick in the flower pot." She goes,
Everywhere.
"That's not. That was never food. What the hell is?" Oh my god! So yeah. So
Petrol and tonic.
yes,
Petrol and tonic.
brushing elbows with the rich and famous.
At least you were only brushing elbows.
And then you said to him, "Hans, you could have come in the house first."
Yeah. It was like old,
Straighten your
was
scarf.
it, Dave Ball from Softcell tried to steal one of my dogs under his coat. He's going out the door. He said, "No, give it here." And he
Mr. Ellis, you could have gone around the side of the house.
he was off his head as well. He's like
Frank Ellis.
Frank. Yeah, no, good guy. It was a lovely phone call I had with him once. Very nice.
Should have gone around the side of the house.
Didn't take praise well.
Anything exciting in the queue, Kent, for stuff you're working on? Anything you don't get very often?
Don't get very often.
Or that we don't get to hear
there's
about?
a couple that are coming up that I don't get very often, which are easy jobs. And I mean, seriously, stupidly easy. Which are, can I put a new internal battery in it and reload the factory presets?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's always nice.
Cool. Get both of them done. Anything interesting? No, not really.
Okay,
No.
moving on. Oh, Asio Head says that's where the term acid house came from. Kent's house stomach acid.
Yeah. My
Oh,
God.
we're Robbie is just gonna die.
Yeah, I think
Slow
if it was
news week.
If it was a kebab, it was still moving when he ate it.
Roadkill. It was roadkill.
Yes. I found it on the tyre of the car. It looked tasty. Yeah. Yeah.
And Richard, have you got anything? What's your week shaping up like?
It looks just like a wooden guitar pick.
It does look like.
It is actually a wooden guitar
It
pick.
wouldn't work.
My week
Ba-dum-bum.
shaping up like, I've got some work to do in this Phantom. I'm nearly done, ready for the next round of what have I done wrong. I have to bring it to a gig and play it to know what I've done wrong.
Yeah.
So this is my second round of programming, and I've got one task or maybe two left to execute before I'm ready. I don't really need it as it stands now until...
Wouldn't float.
I don't need it now until late May. So I'm working on making this thing adaptable to our live show, and it's taking some doing, and I'm quite happy to be doing that because I like working.
What kind of sound? What kind of challenges are you facing with it?
Finding string sounds that have enough attack and don't bloom too much. For example, that's one of my issues because chic strings need to have a very fast attack and a very consistent sustain, but not a blooming sustain, which a lot of string patches have a tendency to do because a lot of string players have a tendency to do. So there's that part of it. There's the synthesizer programming, which is great fun in this thing, especially as workstations go, because the front panel contains a full set of enveloping and filter controls that can be applied very quickly to the internal virtual sound engines that give a very satisfying illusion of operating a synthesizer and ultimately make it very quick to get to a result that sounds good to me using their Jupiter 8 model or whatever, a JX8P or whatever I'm using right at that moment. And so I'm quite enjoying the synthesizer aspects, and I'm also incorporating certain samples strategically into the string performances and some pedaling to vary articulations to try to get some variety in the articulations to add to the realism of the string presentation.
Sounds like what you need is an MPE engine. So,
well, I've got that, but I don't need it for this. No.
Okay.
I have, however, played this thing once on a gig with Chic where I had string sounds on it, and the crew were begging me to bring it on the road.
Well,
Well, it's not something I can do.
Okay.
I mean, it would require equipment, personnel to run and manage that equipment and set it up. In other words, it's a whole nother level of complexity in terms of executing it, in terms of what our crew is set up to do. And there is nobody available to do that right now. So you'd literally have to hire somebody and buy a shitload of gear in duplicate to even consider going on the road like that.
Which is why the workstation route is far and away the better option.
Absolutely. For this purpose, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I have to say, this thing is ridiculously deep. This is, as a flagship product, I'm really impressed with it. It does things far and away better than almost anything else. It's very clever. Like, it's got these 16 sound category buttons right here at the front. And when you use it in drum machine mode, those 16 buttons become the bottom row of your TR-808.
Cool.
You select the kick drum, boom, 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 boom. You select the snare drum, backbeat, backbeat. You select the hi-hat, brrrr. Next thing you know, you got a beat. You know, like it's a very clever implementation throughout the operating system of the hardware that's available on the front panel. It's almost like I can't invent a scenario that this wouldn't suit on somebody's stage, given what keyboard players are generally expected to be able to do.
And the sound's really good out of those as well, isn't it?
Yes, and the ability to load their cloud offerings, including instruments and sample libraries, really, you can load this thing up. If you buy the ultimate subscription from them, you can load this thing up and have it be just ridiculously versatile.
And that may be what we're all going to be doing next, because that sounds like a good instrument. And what about yourself, Mr. Mike, Dr. Mike? What have you got lined up?
Most of the stuff I'm working on is under NDA. I'm writing manuals hither, yon, and there's a product that will be announced on Sunday or Monday that I did a manual edit on that I think people will like. The one thing I can talk about, because it's not a secret, is for those of you who are big on the whole DAWless jam thing, 1010 Music makes the Black Box, which is this marvelous little smart machine that will do looping and sequencing and sampling and so on and so forth. And the release candidate of version 3 of the firmware is about to come out, and they've reworked a lot of stuff. It's quite a bit easier to sequence in now, and they've revamped the MIDI so that it's actually quite a good MIDI control center for other beasts. So if you're the sort of person who hates having a laptop open on your desk, but you want a lot of that power, it's going to be a big update, and it's going to be really good. Other than that, I've got a piece of hardware I can't show you. I've got some software on my computer I can't show you. I'll be at NAMM next week, and I'll be showing you the carpet, because I promised. And so Kent, you and Robbie and I are going to have to work out how I can do StreamYard from my phone. So it's work, and I'm glad to have it. The alternative is not a good thing.
Fair dues.
Cool. Well, I think aside from myself, I've just got a bunch of stuff. I've got the full collection of Rob Pappen software that I'm about to install. I've used it lots of times over the years, different plugins, and I've now got the whole library, so I'm going to be installing that and playing around with that. I've not done enough music of late, so I'm going to be playing around with that. I've always liked his interfaces, and I've always liked the sounds. The preset libraries he comes with, which you can change, are astonishingly good.
Yep.
And it'll be nice to play around with something. And Rob Pappen's one of the good guys.
He's great. He's awesome. So I have to ask, Andrew, what's your favorite of the synths? Of the
synths?
Yeah.
Blue
Okay.
3.
That's fine. No, I'm a Go-To fan because his stuff gets awfully deep. I do like Predator, but Go-To is so easy to use.
I've not used it, so I'm
Try
looking
it.
forward to it.
It's very simple, very straightforward. His whole thing was, let's get an entire digital synth on one screen with no tabs.
That's going to be fun.
It is, and it's a very nice sounding machine. Anyway,
good. So that's my week sorted out. Kent, would you say, Mr. Bossman for the night, would you say we've had a show?
I'd say we'd had a show.
If
Yeah,
you can call what we just did to this poor network a show.
yeah. Well, if you're going to let the rats out, man, you know what happens. So
Yeah,
well, I mean, filling in the Robbie Shoe bit now. I'd say so. We got Rands tomorrow. Don't miss. Well, I think we got Rands tomorrow. We got Jamie on Sunday, and so forth. So there you go. And there will be a pub tomorrow night.
Oh, what time? What time?
Pick a number, any number.
Oh, so you're going to do another one of those, huh?
Yeah. Probably start about 7.
Groovy.
Until
I'll see if I can pop
Wednesday.
in. Matt Evans is saying that a pub with me in it would be terrifying. And hell, I live to terrify
right.
people.
He's absolutely right.
I live to terrify people. Oh, and yes, please click like and subscribe.
So it doesn't
ring
look
the
like I
bell
did such a bad job.
And
I've
we
been-
really did. We didn't get a single money contribution this time. We
We're
really
gonna pay for this.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Good
Yeah,
God, come on.
We should be
suck.
paying them.
Yeah.
But thank you, Richard, for such a late turning up. It was delightful.
Oh, it was
Always
a pleasure and really great
always
talking
great
to
to
you
have
guys.
you.
Yeah,
Always
talking
great to
you
have
guys.
you.
Really enjoyed this.
Yep.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
You poor
I don't
sad
think
individual.
Ollie was in tonight on the chat, was he?
Who?
I didn't see
Ollie.
Ollie.
No.
No, didn't see him.
No, that's a shame. I had a surprise for him. Never mind.
Oh well, we'll save it.
Attaboy, Matt.
Good
Matt,
Good
there we
old
go.
Matt.
you.
Good old
That's
Matt.
just
Thank
fine.
you, Matt.
Man.
Thank you, Matt.
We don't want Robbie to feel too lonely.
Oh, look at this.
And
And John
Simpson.
Simpson.
Go, John.
Oh, well done.
John
Go,
again,
Good man.
same as last week. John, thank you so much.
This will almost repair the damage I've done to the franchise.
No,
No.
Not
No.
nearly.
No.
No.
Not nearly.
Yeah.
no.
Just imagine I'm
There-
Trump and I just need more money
You-
for my defense.
You just no. Just
No.
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 No. No.
So-
absolutely.
No.
We didn't have
It
to
sucks
go.
all the joy out of the room. Just
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Oh.
Synthetic says that Ramsey is on tomorrow for sure.
Oh, good. All right.
Cool.
All right, guys. Let's call it.
All
So,
right.
Rob, you now have to find out how to do the end titles. Get more technology. for
Thank you,
So-
Synthetic.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Oh, Synthetic, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Andy.
Kent, just plead guilty.
Well done, Andy. That's funny.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the only difference between my show and this one is this has credits at the end and the beginning. I think that's about it. I think that's.
Well, let's see if you can actually run the credits.
Are you ready?
By the
Everybody-
way, we need to. Is anybody up for taking the end theme? I love the end theme, but a minor key is just such a weird way to go out. I want to rewrite that arrangement in a major key. And that's going to be one of my projects. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
just leave the whole thing. Just make it major. Make it happy. Although, being unhappy after this program is not entirely out of
Yeah.
out
What,
of line.
what sort of chords do you use for relief?
Oh dear.
Yeah. People are going, thank God it's finished.
Yeah,
I can go and get on with my
hang on.
life.
glass of water, dip a finger.
Okay. Anyway, everybody take. No, that's not right. I tell you what, I don't want to delete the end credits. That's not.
This could take a while, folks.
Yeah.
This could be the longest.
Fill
This
it
is the
in.
last thing you actually have to deliver in the show, Spong.
Oh my God.
Don't